On a sun-drenched Saturday in August, a search team gathered around an abandoned mine shaft.
There were dangerous areas in the national park.
They found the body of Erin Corwin, who had been missing for 2 months.
They met in high school, they married young, they moved to a place where they didn't know anybody.
She appeared kind of lonely.
This is a story of love won and lost.
A lot of drinking took place there, and they're very young. They were all very, very young.
Of jealousy bordering on obsession.
They seemed to be extremely obsessed with weapons and blowing things up.
We discovered a set of tire tracks.
And ultimately, murder in the first degree.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Exposé takes us to 29 Palms, California. This city in the high desert is home to the Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center, and it was here where a tawdry and twisted story began, which ended in murder and a body being found in a mine shaft.
They sent the camera down, and it was at that point that we noticed a pattern of clothing and what appeared to be a portion of a human body.
The 19-year-old wife of a United States Marine lay crumpled at the bottom of an abandoned mine shaft, 125 feet below the ground.
2 firefighters rappelled at 2 different times. One rappelled down, attempted to secure her body and secure any evidence that was down there. He eventually got sick because of the lack of oxygen, had to come back up, and another firefighter went down. And they were eventually able to recover Erin and several items of evidence.
At first, it was difficult to identify the body.
Unfortunately, Erin's remains were so decomposed, being in the elements. One would think at 125 feet below the surface that it would be like a cooler area with shade, but that's not the case. It's actually hotter than the surface inside those mine shafts.
How had this vibrant young woman with her whole life ahead of her drawn her last breath in the middle of this arid dust bowl? For the answers, we turn the clock back 9 months to a sunny autumn in California. John Corwin, a Lance Corporal in the United States Marine Corps, arrived at his new assignment, the Marine base outside the remote city of 29 Palms, and traveling with him was his wife, Erin.
They met in high school, they married young, he joined the Marine Corps, they moved to a place where they didn't know anybody.
The Corwins moved into a small apartment building on base, where next-door neighbors quickly became fast friends.
They're like a college dorm, almost like a married dorm environment. They'd have barbecues, a lot of drinking took place there, and they're very young. They were all very, very young.
Forced to adjust to an unfamiliar reality and a husband who was often away from home, Erin did the best she could.
She didn't know anyone here. She appeared kind of lonely.
So how did she keep herself occupied?
She loved horses, so she found this horse ranch.
Meanwhile, her dream of becoming a mother hit a serious snag, one that equally agitated her husband.
Earlier in the year, they'd had a miscarriage. It deeply affected Mr. Corwin.
But Erin was pregnant again.
And he was very happy that she was pregnant again, and they were going to have a baby and a family.
Things were looking up for the Corwins. Then early on a Saturday morning in June, Erin gently woke her sleeping husband to tell him she was heading out for a while.
She was planning on going out to look for areas for her and her mother to hike because their mother was coming to visit.
Did she tell John exactly where she was planning on going?
She wanted to go out and explore some hiking areas in the Joshua Tree National Park, which was just south of the 29 Palms area.
At this point, John had no idea that anything was amiss.
He was asleep. She woke him up and she told him she was leaving. He rolled back over, went back to sleep, didn't think anything more of it.
All seemed well, but 2 days later, John Corwin contacted the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department and reported his wife missing. She had driven away in their car on Saturday morning and never returned.
So what does law enforcement typically do in a situation like this?
Whenever we get a missing person case that's related to a hiking area, you have to assume that there might have been a medical emergency.
Deputy sheriffs visited base housing to gather information. They met with John Corwin and then chatted with his neighbors.
Then went next door, knocked on the door of Chris Lee, asked if Chris Lee had seen Erin Corwin. Chris Lee told them that he didn't know anything about her or where she was.
A rather strange response, since Chris Lee and his wife did indeed know John and Erin Corwin. The two couples have spent a lot of time together socially. More on that later, because the county sheriff's office is about to receive a phone call that reveals some critical data.
Erin's vehicle was found off of a dirt road a few miles north of the national park.
There were several homeowners in the area who had spotted it early Saturday morning, and it was still there 2 days later.
So that was pretty far from where Erin planned to go hiking. When you inspected the car, did anything turn up?
Shoe impressions were located that appeared to be leading from the driver's side of Erin's vehicle to what we discovered was a set of tire tracks that had traveled inward from the road and had circled around near Erin's vehicle, near the rear of her vehicle. And it appeared as though her shoe impressions had walked towards the passenger side of the vehicle that came into the area.
So were there any scuff marks in the dirt or anything that indicated a confrontation had taken place?
It was very likely that Erin got picked up by somebody and she entered their vehicle.
Erin left her sleeping husband for a mysterious rendezvous in the desert. So whom does she meet out there? So far, the only person who might know what happened is also the only real suspect in her disappearance.
Nothing truly alarming came out except when he started to discuss the relationship between his neighbors and him and his wife.
John Corwin, an active duty Marine, is the lead suspect in the disappearance of his young wife.
He was very calm, sort of stoic. You know, if somebody's not truly upset, you get a little bit concerned there, especially when you're talking about a spouse.
Erin Corwin had an appointment in the California desert. She abandoned her car and departed the area in another vehicle, never to be seen again.
The sheriff's department launched a ground search in an attempt to find the young woman. Erin could be lost or injured, or worse.
We had deputies driving the area. We worked with the Joshua Tree National Park staff. They conducted some air search with our aircraft. Nothing truly alarming came out except when he started to discuss the relationship between his neighbors and him and his wife.
Neighbor Chris Lee had originally stated that he didn't even know Erin Corwin, who lived right next door. This turned out to be a lie, and it wasn't the only thing off-kilter about Chris Lee.
He seemed to be extremely obsessed with weapons and blowing things up.
Being defiant appeared to run in the family.
Almost immediately, Lee's wife became uncooperative with investigators. She was telling us to leave, that we had no business being at the location.
What was going on between these four so-called friends? If they were hiding something, they were running out of time because the sheriff's office was cranking up the intensity of the investigation.
A homicide detail got contacted.
So why did the sheriff's office switch this case from a missing persons case to a homicide?
She had not utilized her bank account. She had not utilized her phone. The station level investigators decided that this might need a deeper investigation. So that's when we in the homicide detail got contacted.
I know you acquired search warrants to look at the phone records. What'd you find out?
Approximately a week prior to Erin's disappearance, Christopher Lee, he went with a friend of his into the national park. His friend was taking photographs to the mine shafts of the national park.
There was 1 week between Chris Lee's recognizance of mine shafts and Erin Corwin's exploration of hiking trails. There was no direct connection, except that they had planned to explore similar terrain.
Joshua Tree is a vast, vast desert, and there are literally thousands of mine shafts.
After chronologically lining up the cell phone photos that Chris Lee's friend had taken, investigators assembled a search team and began a long, slow survey of the desert floor. The days dragged on, 2 months, 100 mine shafts, and nothing turned up. Then, at the bottom of the last mine on their list, the search team found the decomposing body of Erin Corwin.
So many people would think maybe Erin just fell into the pit, but you found some strange items near her body.
At the bottom of the mine shaft next to Erin were 2 tires, a makeshift torch, a propane tank, and on top of her body was a Sprite bottle.
And when the search team examined the body, they realized that Erin had been murdered.
Well, they found a garrote that was wrapped around her neck and twisted and actually caught up in the back of her hair.
So go over each piece of evidence with me, the tires. I understand that Chris Lee had actually searched how to dispose of a body.
When he discussed with investigators the best way to get rid of a dead body was putting a body under tires. Tires tend to burn for a long period of time and they incinerate the body.
Okay, so let's move on to the propane tank. I understand this relates to Chris Lee again and his interest in weapons.
He told the friend that morning that he was going to try to throw the propane tank down a mine shaft and blow up a mine shaft.
And finally, how about the soda bottle that was thrown down in the bottom of the mine shaft?
The Sprite bottle had DNA from both Erin Corwin and Chris Lee.
We know that Erin and her husband John were expecting a baby, but their goal of becoming parents, as with all of their hopes and dreams, died in the desert on a lonely Saturday morning.
The body was so decomposed that we just could not tell if she was in fact pregnant. There was no actual fetus that could be found.
Doesn't mean she wasn't, it just means if it was fairly early on, the decomposition process would have obscured any evidence of that.
The Corwins and the Lees, 2 married couples, 4 supposed friends, and a curious excursion to nowhere.
Everything was leading to a horrible ending for Erin Corwin. We knew that. The family essentially knew that.
From an underground mine that once bestowed precious metals, a new discovery more valuable than silver or gold, the body of Erin Corwin.
But looking into John, he had told us that he and Erin had married young. They met in high school. He joined the Marine Corps. They moved to a place where they didn't know anybody.
During his conversations with the sheriff's office, John Corwin admitted that his marriage to Erin had run into a few roadblocks.
They had some rocky portions in their relationship, as with most marriages, especially at the beginning when you're talking about a young marriage.
In addition to suffering through a miscarriage, the couple was struggling financially. But things were looking up. At least John thought so, especially since Erin was pregnant again.
It had issues earlier in the year, but they were working through them and had gone to marriage counseling. And that he believed she was pregnant, and he was excited about that.
But Erin was cheating on John with his friend, fellow Marine and next-door neighbor, Chris Lee.
He had stated that they had maybe kissed a few times in the past. Nothing further had occurred between them. They were very good friends with each other at one point, and that his wife had found out. She was really upset.
Over time, we started getting closer, having longer conversations. And then we kissed a few times at her place. And then my wife, she found out and she blew up.
Later, when pressed, Chris Lee admitted that the affair had progressed beyond small kisses and hand-holding.
He claimed that it was physical, that they in fact did have sex, and that he knew she was pregnant at the time of the murder.
Meanwhile, Erin's husband had found out about the affair, but thought it was all in the past.
John was under the impression that was done, and they were moving on with their life, expecting a new child, and had no reason to believe that anything other than would have existed.
But the baby that Erin was carrying was probably not her husband's.
Erin Corwin had told her friend that she believed she was pregnant and that it might be Chris Lee's.
Those objects that the search team found at the bottom of the mine shaft, their intended use suddenly became crystal clear.
We believe that he brought the torches and the propane tank to try to cause some sort of a fire to destroy evidence at the bottom of the mine shaft.
Oblivious to all of this, Erin Corwin had met Chris Lee in the middle of that dusty field, excited about her future and hoping for the best.
It was her belief, unfortunately and sadly, that Lee was possibly going to propose to her.
However, Chris Lee wasn't thinking along those lines at all. His enlistment was up, He was getting out of the military and he was moving to Alaska.
He knew that Erin Corwin was pregnant, and he knew that it could be his child. And he knew that Erin wanted to move to Alaska with him. And he knew that he had led Erin on to believe that they could have a relationship in Alaska. And he also knew that his wife and child were not going to take kindly to that.
And so, Chris Lee chose the only course of action he could think of.
He had to get rid of her. In his mind, that's what he had to do.
So what actually happened then when Eric and Chris met up in the desert?
It was kind of a tense conversation. He approached her as she was facing away from him, crying, put the garrote around her neck, twisted it, and turned to where he was in a back-to-back position and hung her over his back.
When Erin was dead, Chris hurled her body down a nearby mine shaft, along with the car tires and other objects that he needed to hide. Chris Lee then took off to Alaska, but he couldn't hide there forever. Law enforcement caught up with him, and he found himself back in California facing a judge and a jury.
He was charged with first-degree murder with the special circumstance of lying in wait. That is, he essentially waited for an opportunity to act, made a decision to kill. Once he saw the opportunity that he could kill, that's when he did it. The first day of testimony, I could characterize him as sad. I think he did try to cry, but it didn't work. There were no tears. It was just crocodile tears. I made my own garrote. I actually went to Home Depot and bought the items and made my own, and I obtained a dummy. And I had him get off the stand, and I had put the garrote that I made into his hands and had him demonstrate how he killed her.
And Chris actually testified that he had strangled her for 5 minutes. So is it true? I understand that during the simulation, you actually cut the time in half because that visual was so intense.
I saw jurors crying. There were tears in their eyes. A lot of jurors wouldn't look at him anymore as he was doing it. They were looking at the ceiling.
So what were you trying to get across to the jurors?
It was crucial to show that this was premeditated. He thought about life, he thought about death, and he chose death.
After this horrifying glimpse into the mind of a murderer, the jury found Chris Lee guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Erin Corwin cultivated a love triangle, thinking that new companionship might possibly solve the problems in her marriage. But instead, she learned, and all too late, that illicit romance can be destructive. And she paid for that new knowledge with her life. And now it is time for today's Safety Spotlight. The tragic case of Erin Corwin underscores the significant risks that can arise from intimate partner violence, particularly when infidelity is involved. Pay attention to your partner's behavior and reactions, especially if there are signs of possessiveness, jealousy, or aggression. If you notice any red flags, or if the person has a history of violence or threats, take extra precautions. Seek the advice of therapists or counselors who can provide guidance on managing relationship issues and personal safety. And if you are in an abusive relationship, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE or visit thehotline.org. For all of us here at Crime Exposé, please join us next time and stay safe.